bookish people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan. In today's video, we are doing my July book of the month predictions. I am so excited to film this. I cannot believe we're going into July already. And my favorite time of year is finding out what the book of the month selections are going to be. So doing these prediction videos just get me pumped to see those selections. In June, I was actually kind of disappointed in book of the month because I was like, I wanted Riley Sager to be a pick. I wanted Allie Hazelwood to be a pick. And neither of them were selections. But then book of the month surprised us in the middle of the month. And they dropped the only one left and left theoretically on the app. So you could add them to your July boxes early, which obviously I did. And then also too, this month, book of the month changed the way they were doing their hints. I feel like they were taking some hints, and no pun intended, from Aardvark Book Club. They're like, okay, their hint game is coming for us, so we got to step it up. But I don't know. I have some thoughts about the way book of the month did their hints this month. They put out 3 hints, right? 3 word scrambles to do this month, but they all led back to the same book. I just feel like if you're going to release 3 hints like sporadically throughout the month, shouldn't they go for 3 different books? Because all of us on the book of the month predictions Facebook group figured it out what the book was from hint number 1. So then the other 2 hints were just really confirming our theory. Anyway, let's talk about them. So these are the word scrambles that book of the month had this month. The first one being influencer, and then disappear, and then the last one being podcast. And this all points to the book Dark Corners by Meg Golden. Now, I couldn't figure out these word scrambles, so I went to the Facebook group and everyone figured it out, right? And even when they figured out the words, I was looking at July new releases and I was like, this doesn't make sense for any book I see. But then the reason why I couldn't figure out that it was Dark Corners by Meg Golden is because this is actually an August release. So if this is truly the pick, which when I read you the synopsis, you'll be like, oh yes, obviously it is the pick. This will be an early release, which is super cool. I believe the publication date for this book is August 8th. In this book, you're following our main character, Rachel Krell, and she is in helping the police investigate this case. So there is this guy, Terrence Bailey, who was arrested for breaking and entering and was let out in jail. But while he was arrested on breaking and entry, they also suspect him of murdering 6 women, but they don't have enough evidence to prosecute him for those crimes. But when he's out of jail, he gets a surprise visit from an influencer who then later goes missing. Now, I don't know if anybody has read an arc of this book or not. Leave it down in the comments down below. Do you need to read the first book in this series in order to read this book? Because this is a synopsis that I'm interested in, but like I don't feel like reading the first book in the series. So if people are telling me I can read this without reading the first one, then this one is definitely going to be on my radar. Now let's talk about my fiction predictions. I only have one fiction prediction this month, and that is The Librarianess by Patrick Dewitt. So this seems to be a very character-based book. You're following this man named Bob, and he is a retired librarian, and he's walking down the street when he sees an elderly woman who is obviously confused. So he decides to help her find her way back to her retirement home. And then when he's there, he starts like reading to the people and becoming friends with the people. And it's kind of about like what the facade that he puts on, like he is just like this well put together, well-rounded person, and what is really lying underneath. So yeah, just like a character-based, like, I don't know, it's not my type of book, but I feel like this could definitely be a fiction selection because I feel like this is a fiction book that I am seeing everywhere on the new releases, and like it's getting more buzz around it, so I could definitely see this being a selection. Now we're moving on to romance, and the first prediction I have is Hello Stranger by Catherine Center, and she would be a repeat author. Last year, The Bodyguard was one of her selections. I got The Bodyguard. That was one of my picks last year. I absolutely loved that book and rated it 5 stars, so I am highly anticipating her new release. So in this book, you're following our main character, Sadie, who ends up needing surgery, and when she wakes up from surgery, one of the side effects from it is she now has a face blindness, so she cannot recognize faces. And so it's about her process of healing and dealing with her new reality, and while she is doing this, she also falls in love with 2 different men. So it sounds like a fun time. It definitely sounds like more like emotional, deep than The Bodyguard. The Bodyguard was just a really light, fluffy romance. And even Catherine Center said about The Bodyguard is that she wrote it during the time of 2020 when everyone just needed a little bit of joy in their life. So she didn't want to make a deep emotional romance. But I believe all her previous work is more deep and emotional. So I feel like that is kind of following the same tone. But then it has a similar cover to The Bodyguard. So like, what is this book going to be? I don't really know. I really liked her light fluffiness of The Bodyguard. So like, I hope this one isn't like too, you know, different than that. But it sounds like an interesting premise, and I will definitely be reading it if it's a selection. My next romance prediction is also from another repeat author, and that is To Have and to Heist by Sarah Dessay. In this book, you're following our main character, Simi, and her life is just kind of a mess right now. And then on top of that, her best friend gets accused of stealing a multi-million-dollar diamond necklace. So in order to exonerate her best friend, she devises a plan to steal the necklace back. But she doesn't just devise the plan. A hot man named Jack walks into her life and is like, hey, let me help you and your friend, and I will help you get this necklace back back. We just have to steal it back. So they have to infiltrate the wedding of the season. So they get a group together to execute this heist. I think this is obviously going to be a cute romance between Simi and Jack, but like on top of it, we have an interesting plot and like kind of action and comediness to go along with it. I'm just excited. It seems like one of those like romantic action comedy movies that you like see going on right now. Kind of like that, oh my god, what is that movie with J-Lo that literally just came out with J-Lo and Josh Duhamel? Like those kind of vibes. You know, like different plot, but like those type of vibes. Like romantic action comedy. And I'm here for it, okay? It's different than anything I will have ever read, so I'm really hoping this is a pick because I will 100% select. Honestly, even though I love The Bodyguard, I'm kind of hoping this will be a pick more than the Catherine Center book. Now we're moving on to my favorite genre, which is mystery thriller. There is 3 amazing mystery thrillers that I have my eyes on that I think could possibly be selections this month. The first one we're going to talk about is The Block Party by Jamie Day. Now the synopsis is so short, so I'm just going to read it to you because like I can't summarize it better than the way this is worded. It says, the residents of the exclusive cul-de-sac on Alton Road are entangled in a web of secrets and scandal utterly unknown to the outside world and even to each other. Okay, domestic thriller, rich people. Obsessed. Love it. On the night of the annual summer block party, there has been a murder. I'm invested. But who did it and why takes readers back 1 year earlier as rivalries and betrayals unfold, discovering that the real danger lies within their own block and nothing and no one is ever as it seems. So give me the Real Housewives, add in murder, make it a book. I'm excited for it. I love a good domestic thriller. Domestic thrillers are my favorite type of thrillers. So this one would be an amazing selection. The next mystery thriller I am predicting comes from a repeat author, and that would be A Likable Woman by May Cobb. I read The Hunting Wives by this author. I read My Summer Darlings by this author, and I loved both of them. Now, I think The Hunting Wives was her first book. Book of the Month selected it. After that came My Summer Darlings, and Book of the Month did not select My Summer Darlings. So would they pick this one? Because they didn't pick her last one. Who knows? But either way, I would be excited. Now, May Cobb does not have like a literary masterpieces. They are just fun, trashy, entertaining mystery thrillers, and I love them, okay? I recommend the first 2 I mentioned, but just go into it knowing. It's like watching a Lifetime movie, add smut in it, and make it a mystery thriller. So in this book, you're following our main character, Kira, and she had a strained relationship with her mother, and then her mother ended up dying, and she fled town, and she's like, I need to start over somewhere else. Decades later, she is called back to the small town by one of her frenemies who's having a vow renewal party, and she's like, yeah, no, I don't really want to go to that, but then her grandmother calls her and says, hey, I found something in your mother's belongings, and now I don't know if her death was a natural death or if she was murdered. So Kira, her interest is piqued. She goes back to the small town and finds out that her mother was writing a memoir leading up to her death, and it exposes all these secrets, and it seems that someone wants to keep these secrets buried. So she enlists the help of her childhood sexy crush Jack to help her kind of uncover the truth of what really happened with her mother's death. This book is just perfect for summertime and is definitely one that is being added to my TBR. The last mystery thriller we're going to talk about is The St. Ambrose's School for Girls by Jessica Ward. Now this is one just based on the cover I was super excited for, but looking it up on Goodreads, it hasn't even come out yet. It comes out July 11th and the rating is a 3.32. It is not looking good for this book, but the synopsis sounds really interesting to me. So you're following our main character, Sarah, who goes to this all-girls boarding school, and it's filled with like rich kids, and she's not a rich kid, and she's also dealing with a recent bipolar diagnosis. So she's kind of dealing with all of that, and then the queen bee of the school, Greta, picks Sarah as her target, and she just endlessly bullies her. And Sarah turns to her roommate, who's also kind of a loner, and then something goes too far, someone ends up dead, and we gotta figure out what actually happened. So honestly, it sounds interesting. It sounds fun to me. It says The Heathers meets The Secret History. It says Heathers meets The Secret History, so obviously I'm excited, but these reviews has me doubting things. Now we're moving on to fantasy and sci-fi, and the first book we're going to talk about is Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. Now this one, I have an asterisk on the prediction part, because I am not sure if this is going to be a prediction or not. Like, let's look at the facts. These Violent Delights was a prediction. I mean, was a selection, but then the sequel to that, Our Violent Ends, was not a selection. Then we have Foul Lady Fortune. That was a selection, and then the sequel to that one hasn't come out yet. So they've already picked 2 of her books before, so would they pick a 3rd book? I don't know. I really don't know. Well, it's like, okay, I feel like they wouldn't, right? Because they already had 2 of her YA fantasy books, but this isn't YA fantasy. This is adult fantasy. This is her first adult fantasy debut. So I am really undecided on if this will be a selection or not. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. But I was looking at all kind of like the fantasy new releases, and this is the only one that stood out to me as a potential book of the month selection. The other one I'm going to talk about is a sci-fi book. So yeah, I don't know if this is going to be a selection or not. If it is, this is another Shakespearean retelling, much like like her YA fantasy work, and this one is the story of Antony and Cleopatra. Now I don't know the details beyond that because personally I'm going to be reading this book regardless and I want to go in blind. I was never a Shakespeare girl, so I don't know what the story of Antony and Cleopatra is, but if you're interested in that, then yeah, that is what this book is about. Now for my sci-fi prediction, I am predicting The Deep Sky by Yumi Kitase. This is pitched as a sci-fi thriller, a little bit dystopian as well. So you have Earth that is absolutely collapsing. It is not livable anymore. So the day before Earth's collapse, they send 80 people on a spaceship to outer space to repopulate another planet. And out of the 80 people, 3 of the crew end up being murdered. And the last person who was selected for the mission, she ends up being the primary suspect for the murders. And during these murders, the whole spaceship got put off course. So not only are they now just kind of floating through space, there's also a murder on the loose and Earth is collapsing. So honestly, it sounds really interesting to me. Like, this is a sci-fi I would definitely be interested in reading. I'm always trying to broaden my horizons, especially this year. I'm trying to broaden my horizons with sci-fi specifically. So I would really love for this to be a book of the month selection. Now we're moving on to historical fiction. And the first book we're going to talk about is The Sunset Crown by Karen Tarabi. This one, it comes out, well, it doesn't matter when it comes out in July. So this one takes place in 1970s Los Angeles, and I'm just going to read you the little blurb on top. It says, from Rodeo Drive to the French Riviera, Karen Tarabi's The Sunset Crowd is a tale of survival and reinvention, of faking it until you make it, and the glittering appeal of success and stardom as it seeks to answer the timeless question, who gets to have the American dream? Money and fame in 1970s Los Angeles. Everyone is fighting to reach the top, but very few have the talent, ambition, and luck to get there. And it has a really beautiful cover. So I really love like 1970s Hollywood, LA type of things. Like Daisy Jones and the Six, this kind of gives me similar vibes. I mean, it has nothing to do with the music industry. It only gives me the vibes and that it's fame in the 1970s. So put those two things together and I will read you. Also, Evelyn Hugo, right? That is like a book that spans decades. You follow fame throughout this time period. I think they go over the 1970s as well. So yeah, I just find that time really fascinating to read about like coming of age stories in Los Angeles. So this could be an interesting historical fiction pick. And the last historical fiction prediction, I'm not kidding you, I will actually pick it. I will for once pick a historical fiction selection from Book of the Month if this is it, because this sounds so interesting, and it is called The Housekeepers by Alex Hay. Now I'm just gonna read you the synopsis because I can't word it better than this. Mrs. King is no ordinary housekeeper. Born into a world of con artists and thieves, she's made herself respectable, running the grandest home in Mayfair. The place is packed with treasures, a glittering symbol of wealth and power, but dark secrets lurk in the shadows. When Mrs. King is suddenly dismissed from her position, she recruits an eclectic group of women to join her in revenge. A black market queen out to settle her scores, an actress desperate for a magnificent part, a seamstress dreaming of a better life, and Mrs. King's predecessor with her own desire for vengeance. Their plan, on the night of the house's highly anticipated costume ball, set to be the most illustrious of the year, they will rob it of every possession, right under the noses of the distinguished guests and their elusive heiress host. But there's one thing Mrs. King wants even more than money, the truth, and she'll run any risk to get it. After all, one should never underestimate the woman downstairs. Oh my god, does that not sound so good? So like, you have like an eclectic group of criminals, well, they're not even criminals, but like an eclectic group of people coming together to pull off a heist, and it just sounds fun. Okay, like what else can I say? It sounds fun. This one comes out July 4th. It's an early July release. So anything that comes out like the first 15 days in the month, I'm like, okay, yeah, that could feasibly be a book of the month selection. And now we're going to talk about 2 potential add-ons, which are both from repeat authors. The first one being Crook Manifesto by Colson Whitehead. Now, the first book in the series was a book of the month selection, so it would make sense that the second book in the series would also be an add-on. And this one, I don't know, it comes out July 18th, so it could be a July thing or it could be an August thing, unsure, but I thought I would mention it. And the last one we're talking about is Silver and Nitrate by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. They've had a few of her books, but they didn't have her most like recent release, The Doctor of Monroe or something. I forgot what it's called. Anyway, the last Sylvia Moreno Garcia book they didn't have, but they've had some of her work before, so this is like potential maybe. Just thought I would mention it because she would be a repeat author. And then the last person we're going to talk about is Shari Lapina and Everyone Here Is Lying. This is a domestic thriller. I'm so excited. Shari Lapina has been picked by Book of the Month multiple times, but the publication date for this is July 20th. So again, if it is a selection, would it be a July selection or could it be an August selection? I don't really know. I always thought like, oh, if it comes out the month, it has potential to be a selection. But after they pulled out with the only one left and Love theoretically releasing it in the middle of the month, I'm like, we don't really know now, do we? So yeah, those are all the book of the month predictions that I have. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see what I select this month. I am so excited. Like I said, doing these videos just gets me so pumped for the books coming out. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!